Joe, John, hello again. Another installment of what are we calling them, John?
Performance Diaries.
Performance Diaries, brilliant. So the idea is to just have some chats with Joe, as he's in like pre-season or preparation for um, performance. And like what I wanted to talk about this week. Um, I've spent the last week doing a load of spotlight profile debriefs for a really cool organization. Um, and we talked a lot about how Spotlight starts as a profile for individuals around self-awareness and adaptability, but it quickly becomes a way of thinking, especially when you apply it at an organizational level. And Joe, you'd be familiar with like the cope and flex frameworks for working with mindset and behavior. Um, and so, like, what I'm interested to explore this week um, is how that might apply to your season. And to just bring that into focus, GB Olympics use Spotlight, um, and they would use it in their 4-year Olympic cycle. And so they would intentionally adopt an organizational mindset, let's call it a mode of travel, that's aligned with their 4-year Olympic cycle. So the first year in the cycle, they would really try and adopt collectively that optimistic mode of travel, where it's very open, very exploratory. They're looking for the opportunity in everything. But they'll step through that engaged mindset, the prudent mindset, where they'll start to consider like the early threat detection. What stuff haven't we thought of that could really hurt our performance? And then year 4, of course, is all about performance, a contained mindset, execution focus. So they would use that to kind of step through. And it made me think about your season. And I thought, like, yeah, how do you navigate the season, like in terms of mindset or mode of travel?
I think it's worth starting with I'm forcefully optimistic, I think they call it, which is to my benefit or to my well, often it goes against me, as we saw last year. And I think the difference between myself and a 4-year cycle is we have lots of mini cycles throughout the year.
Yeah.
Winter's always about preparation and organization, everything that needs to be sorted out, and then very quickly shifts to performance almost overnight. But interestingly, mine is often too, I think it's too performance focused or too optimistic. And then I say my biggest mistake is not being able to step back and go kind of be more prudent. I think is my that's my main thing. It's hard kind of looking back on the year and going, wow, I can see where you got carried away. I remember doing one of these calls and being like, oh, I need to race when I'm in the US. And I tried to ask you guys, should I race every week? I think you even said no, and I said, well, I'm doing it anyway. Very forcefully optimistic of me and not very prudent of me. And then it bit me in the butt later in the year. So I think it all comes down to the whole planning thing, and mini cycles is my best way of looking at it now. Like kind of the prep, perform, kind of look back, prep, perform, look back. And sometimes I'm going to get lost as well, like back to
Yeah.
back race weekends and stuff. But after 2 years of doing this now, I've kind of realized I've been more prudent and I've taken big rest blocks, big kind of relax blocks, and yeah, falsely optimistic is very good as a professional athlete. I think most people are, but you have to be. But sometimes you need people, especially like John, in your corner to be, hey, whoa, 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 calm yourself down.
Yeah. And John would definitely, yeah, John would definitely illuminate some of your like potential blind spots. John would be very people oriented and would have strengths around, operating in that certainty around like what the facts of a situation and keeping things grounded and not kind of overreacting to, the possibility of racing every weekend or he would also not, get into that crystal ball of doom if a couple of things don't work out how we expected. John will keep an even keel, so no surprise that you're feeling that. I mean, like I wonder if, um, well, a couple of things that you said that I'm curious about. Um, it definitely sounds like winter time is a time to lean into behaviors around that more logical, like detailed planning, seeking understanding, getting properly organized. Um, and um, and then the other thing you said, that's making me think about the team that's around you. And we spoke last time about like your circle and who's in your support team. And maybe instead of you trying to get into that prudent sort of mindset when actually you need to be fully leveraging your strengths when you're in competition. I wonder, like, have you had conversations with your team to say, look, I need you guys to kind of illuminate my blind spots a bit, and you could help that by in this mini cycle, I might need some, different perspectives on what's going on.
Yes, I've told most of my team, like the team around me, to be harsher with me, because often I get carried away with either planning something off the bike, like a new project or something, or alternatively, I go, "Oh, training's going perfectly. Let's push on. Let's keep going. Let's go harder." So I had a conversation with my coach over winter. I was like, "Please, please, please, don't let me push you into doing something extra too early." Because I remember last year I was too good too soon, and the season isn't February, March. It's realistically March 1 to October 31. So it's pointless being good in February. And there's been a few times in the last couple of months where I've gone, come on, Alex, I'm feeling good. I want to push on. I want to do 30-hour weeks instead of 25-hour weeks on the bike. And he just keeps reminding me, like, no, 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 hold your horses. Remember what you told me to do. And I think it's probably hard for him as well because I always like to push the limit on things like that. But there's also a part of me which is probably just growing up and having doing it for a while, is knowing that not all training can be perfect. And sometimes, but what is perfect anyway? Some days I ride longer, some days I ride slightly shorter. And yeah, it's my life is ruled by training peaks, as we spoke about last week. But I'm happy to be plus or minus 10% now. Although I say that if it says 6 hours on my plan, it's got to be 6 hours and 1 minute. It can't be 5 hours 59. So there is still a part of me which is a little bit insane there.
So, like, what I'm hearing is actually for you in that sort of winter period, sort of November, December, January, possibly getting into a bit of February. It's more of a contained. It's like, look, there's a plan. Just stick to the plan. Like if you wake up in January and you think I'm feeling absolutely like world beating, I'm going to go and do an extra session and I'm going to push myself. Actually, that's the time to it's like no, we're in contained mode of travel at the moment. We know what the plan is. Let's just stick to the process. When does that start to shift for you? Like, at what point would you say, right, I need to move from this now and get excited about the possibility of competition?
Honestly, last night I was lying in bed last night and I was saying to Maggie about 2 weeks ago, I don't feel ready to go yet. Like I don't feel ready to like race, obviously. I'm not quite fit enough yet. I'm about a month out of full fitness, but more I'm not quite ready to go on the whole adventure again because it's however many weeks away from home, it's the travel, it's the you got to be in the right mindset to actually race. And then for some reason last night, I think because yesterday was the end of my big winter training block, and then it's this week is a week off, and then we go again for the next kind of prep training block. And I sat down yesterday after training, went, I think I'm ready. Like mentally, I'm ready to go into the next phase. And I mean, that's a good thing because even though it's a practice race, quote unquote, my first race is in 2 weeks. So I think just how my years cycled, you start training in November. By the end of January, you're fit enough. 400 watts starts to feel easier on the ride. Your heart rate's lower. Everything's just, there's markers subconsciously. And I think I'm still going to try and do the whole stick to the plan thing because where I'm best is when I have a plan and I'm uninterrupted routine. And that's really hard to do when I'm in the States because I'm constantly here, there, and everywhere. But I'm bringing my coach out here next week and we're going to talk about how we can phase kind of the next 2 months and effectively have a plan. Because the ideal plan is if things are going really well, you keep it the same. If things are going really bad, you back it off. Because it's if things are going really well and you try and push, sometimes that's when you get too far. Even at the minute, say going into the rest block next week, it was planned to have 4 or 5 weeks solid training, week off, and then go again. It's very much having those, I don't know, I've known for the last 3 weeks, this is the last week. And I think my
Yeah.
body's also known. But no, it's funny you say that because literally last night I sat down, I was like, right, time to go race bikes up mountains again.
And what triggers that? So like sounds last night a shift started in your mindset, and I'm curious, like what um what feelings trigger that?
It's a multitude, and I'd say one of the interesting ones is when I get to the point in Girona that I say there's no good 5 hour rides in town, which isn't true because I think one of the best places in the world is to ride. But when I get to the point where I think I've done every single road in Catalonia this winter, I'm like, okay, time to go somewhere new. It's almost like my body wants to
Yeah,
go on an adventure. But I do think a lot of it comes down to training and fitness as well. If I felt like I was a month behind, I wouldn't want to go racing yet. But say I'm not quite at race fitness, but I'm at a point where I want to start testing myself against others. I want to see what I'm doing. It's it's almost like it's like an urge to go and
yeah,
compete, which I really didn't have. And like even a couple of weeks ago, I was saying to Megs, I was like, I don't want to race yet. I don't want to go to the States yet. Nothing feels ready. But even small checkpoints, I booked my flight to my first flight out, maybe this time last week. So everything's starting to come together. I know my new bike is in the post. It's one of those, it's just all the contracts are signed, everything's ready. And there's a few curveballs that come into play, like one did earlier this week, but you feel like you're a train moving on your path and there's not much
yeah.
that's going to stop you.
So what I'm hearing is that there's a process of training. Some of the stuff off the bike starts to trigger as like, right, the first flight's booked, this stuff. And like what I'm hearing is that process that you follow in the off season is 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 generating evidence. And that evidence actually, eventually, there's a weight of evidence that's triggering like a shift in your kind of confidence level around competition, and that triggers a move in mindset. It's like, right, I'm now sort of thinking, you know, about like exploring the possibility, like the opportunities that are just around the corner in the season. Nice. And then when your trainer's around and like you're having that review process, is like, do we stay contained? Like, do we keep things the same, things going well? Um, like at some point, is it a kind of, at what point do you start to consider the downside? Like what stuff have we not thought through that might catch us unawares?
Um, I'd say it depends what the downside sizes are, because the biggest one for me as an athlete is obviously getting sick.
Yeah,
That can derail like everything. So that's usually managed very, I don't, not day to day, but almost week to week. Being super cautious with everything, checking HRV, aura, sleep, all that stuff. But we still talk about it as in, I'm flying to London tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, really, really early. I leave my house at 3 a.m. So instead of doing a stupidly long ride on a Sunday like I'd normally do, I stopped training effectively on Saturday and did an easy ride yesterday to just make sure I'm kind of easing into it. Again,
yeah,
I probably wouldn't have got sick, but it's just being cautious there.
yeah,
And I've kind of, I'd say where there's no major win is usually when I back off. When I go to the States, I'll back off 3 or 4 days before just to make sure everything's at almost zero before I go out there with all the stress.
yeah.
Um, but I'd say it's trying to get ahead of the game, but sometimes you just get thrown by something.
Yeah.
And that is
But you
fine.
do build in like into your micro cycle around an event-based travel, you know, like a week prior, you'll be moving to very prudent mode of travel and saying, right, there's I'm going to like dial the training back. I'm not going where there's crowds. I'm going to really look after some stuff which is like an interesting that just before you step into that optimistic, forceful, it's time to hit the go button. You do intentionally move to that prudent, just kind of take care of some stuff.
I,
Mm.
I think
Mm.
the best way of describing it is kind of like a pendulum, where I think with most athletes you're either fully off or fully on. It's very rare that you sit actually in the middle. Because even which does go against what I've just been saying to a degree, but even this winter, um, when I've been training and doing big weeks and knowing my immune system is slightly down, I just turned quite antisocial. I live with, let's say, Maggie and two of my other best friends, so I don't go out the house. It's like
Yeah,
maybe I nip out for coffee, but I try and avoid seeing people. I don't train with other people. And I think that switched into the prudent mindset of the goal here is to get fit. I don't need to do X, Y, or Z. But then say you have your fun late October, November. So it's very much just being extra cautious and touch wood, I haven't got sick so far this year. And usually I get sick over Christmas. But again, we looked at the trends from the last 2 years when you always get sick over Christmas, Joe. Backed off training the week before I went home
yeah,
was completely fine. So
nice.
yeah, it's never perfect and say I could touch a door handle and pick up whatever, but it's just trying to mitigate as much as possible.
Yeah, nice. I like it. I like it's like periodization. It's using cope and flex to periodize, and I think businesses could learn from sport around that. Like I think businesses tend to go full throttle for as long as they can, and actually, it might help to just think things through a little bit, shifting mode of travel or shifting collective mindset. Thanks, Joe. Um, can't wait to check in next week when I think we're going to talk about chasing people. So yeah, next week we'll talk
Legally.
about chasing people. Yeah, not to freak them out, but yeah, like the power of pursuit. Uh, thanks a lot. Thanks, John. Catch you all later.
Thank you.